Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is March 10th, 2025, 8 days away from our 5-year anniversary as a community. It's broadcast 1257. Thank you, Penny. Susie, it's good to see you too. Joyce, nice to see you too. Hi, Joy. Kim, Boker Tov, good to see you. Hope that all of you are safe and well. A lot to talk about, kind souls. Judy and Linda, Debbie, Boker Tov, it's good to see you. Let's see who else is here. We'll say good morning to a few sweet friends, and then we will get started with our learning for the day. Arlene, good morning. Deborah and Sunday, Jonathan and Anya, Marilyn, Boker Tov, good to see all of you. Carl, good morning. Hope that you're doing okay. Let's take a breath, sing a bracha, learn some Torah. Here we go. So good morning. So good to see all of you. I hope that you're safe and well. It is broadcast 1257. It is day 521 since October 7th. I'm going to begin today with awarding some rabbi points to Arlene, who misses those days where I would give people rabbi points for saying hello. Well, rabbi points for you, Arlene, and in honor of you, rabbi points for everybody. Make sure you don't spend them all in one place. Remember, rabbi points are only good for one thing, which is redeeming them for more rabbi points. Okay. It's a week of Purim, and so why not start with a little bit of humor and lightness. I want to share, I'm wearing a name tag, which I don't usually have to do in the office, but we are having a very significant summit right now. This is the UJA Ukraine Solidarity Summit happening today. There are speakers representing our efforts in Ukraine and Poland, which did not begin with the war 3 years ago. It began when we began with our work all around the world to support community, Jewish and beyond, the nonprofit network that we have always supported all around the border of Poland and within Ukraine. In a moment's notice, in a second's notice, pivoted to being refugee welcoming points. And a group of rabbis and I traveled, sent by UJA, in the month following the war's breakout, and we stood witness at the border. I'll be talking about this as part of the summit in just a little bit. And I wanted to bring it into your consciousness because I stepped in for a moment just before the broadcasts happening in the building, and the conversation was happening. I'll just tell you who was on this extraordinary panel being facilitated by my colleague, the Chief Planning Officer here at UJA, Rabbi Deborah Josselau. She was in conversation with Mark Levin, who's the CEO for the National Coalition Supporting Eurasian Jewry, and Dora Chomiak, who is the CEO of Razom for Ukraine. This is just a high-level conversation happening, and one of the parts of the conversation relates to the Purim story. So I'm going to weave that and this, um, which is that Ukraine's relationship with the Jews over its history has been spotty at best. You remember Babi Yar. I hope you do. And if not, I encourage you to look up Babi Yar, which today is a memorial site for a massacre of Jews. Within the 20th century, it was actually called by one historian the Holocaust of Bullets, because as opposed to the use of concentration camps, this was a bullet-ridden Holocaust where Jews were brought and shot on sight and buried in one pit. There is a lot of Jewish history that we continue to learn, including the wisdom of Rabbi Nachman of Braslav, but all of it is flavored by a kind of Jewish history which defines so much of at least Ashkenazi consciousness, but also Sephardi consciousness. And it brings to light one of the themes of Purim, one of the big questions that we have, which is in the story of Purim. For those who are familiar with it, this will be, just a review, but not all of us remember this part. There's a bad guy. I'll say his name, and you're allowed to make noise wherever you are. I encourage you to. His name was Haman. And he goes to the king, whose name is Achashverosh, and says, there is a nation unlike the rest of your kingdom. Their ways are different. Their languages and their customs are different. Give me permission to do what I'd like with them. Thank you for all the booing. That's perfect. And he makes a significant donation to the treasury, meaning bribes the king. And the king says, yes, you may. And the story continues with the vulnerable Jewish population being taken advantage of by those in power, which is a story that happened throughout Jewish history. You might know that the prayer for the government recited here in the United States is actually an adapted version for a democracy from a prayer that used to be recited regularly on behalf of the king, because the whim of the leader used to determine the welfare of the Jewish community, and it turns out that even within democracies, such a thing can still be true. And so one of the questions that we need to think about, my friends, is given our work within Ukraine and the evolution, as I was just hearing, of the Jewish community within Ukraine to feel more Ukrainian than ever because of a common battle against Russia, who invaded Ukraine 3 years ago. How powerful it is for us to wonder whether or not there is such a thing as actually an accepted Jewish community within any nation. Because Jews are, of course, a people, a religion, but also a people, a nation. And the accusation that we are our own nation is not actually an accusation. We say it ourselves every time we say, Am Yisrael Chai. And since October 7th, so many Jews around the world have felt more connected to our people than ever before, which actually makes very poignant this question. Are we part and parcel of the nations where we find ourselves? I certainly have felt this way since my family, my ancestors emigrated to the United States 4 generations ago. My grandfather of blessed memory served in the Army during World War II. My sister serves in the Navy today as a chaplain. We have been part of this country's history. And it is also true that there have been dark moments of American history that we have been witness to, including this moment. Ukraine is not the United States. I'm not making that comparison, nor are either one Persia, Shushan, in the story of Purim. but the ability of one evildoer in the government to sway an entire population to attack a group, that group being the Jews in the Purim story, that group often being the Jews in Ukrainian history, and that group sometimes being the Jews, and now sometimes being other groups, immigrants, LGBTQ people, especially trans people. That can be the case anywhere you go. And unless we remember our history, which a day like today makes us do, unless we remember our history and how we have evolved from being a persecuted population in Ukraine to being part of Ukraine, which is to be persecuted. Is Haman, you can boo again, only to be invoked when it is a threat against the Jews? Or does it represent corruption and hatred ensconced in power? This is a big question for us these days. I invite us to think about it as we go into a week of Purim. This week, I'll be shifting back and forth between Purim teachings and the Torah portion, which is Kitisa. But I encourage us to keep, first of all, the humor of saying boo, because it tells us we still know how to laugh. We still know how to do that, thank God. But I encourage us, first of all, to hold Ukraine in our hearts. This is a solidarity summit. We have always been in support, not only as Americans with our ally, Ukraine, but also as a Jewish community united around the world. We have been part of the response to the invasion 3 years ago, which I stood witness to. We have also, of course, been students of our own sacred writings, including Megillat Esther. The story of Esther, which we'll talk about this week, is one of political intrigue, of the use of power, of the complicated nature of being a people within a nation, or a nation within a nation. It calls into question countless things, including how Jews are seen and how therefore we as Jews must see. We cannot act like Haman, persecuting others, not only for their difference, but also for their disagreeableness. It must be possible to live with respect as a people within the world. Haman couldn't imagine that. He's no more. His descendants spiritually might still exist, but the question is, how do we stand in solidarity, knowing the complicated nature of our own history? When I say my family has been here in the United States now for 4 generations, it's because we left because we needed to. That's also part of the Jewish story. How do we involve ourselves in a national story, knowing the complicated nature of what it is to be a Jew, to historically have been othered over and over and over again? When we wield power, how do we wield it? When we are threatened, how do we respond? These are big questions for us, friends. I'm going to say at the end of each time I teach something from Purim this week, I'm going to say the same phrase from the end of the Megillah. Lahiudim haita ora v'simcha v'sason v'yikar kein tielanu. The Jews then, at the end of the story, as complicated as it is, had ora v'simcha, light and joy, sason v'yikar, dear experiences and happiness. Kein tielanu, may it so be for us. So, we, of course, stand in solidarity with Ukraine. We're going to do our best to remain the vital network of support that we have been since before day one of this war. And we're going to ask all the hard questions of ourselves and of each other and of our partners, all aimed towards light and joy. I know that in this teaching I haven't said one word about the hostages, so let me not shirk my duty. 59. Beloveds, we want them home now. And the challenge, of course, of all of this is to know that while we are fighting on behalf of others, we have to fight like lions for our own. That hasn't changed. May whatever this next phase look like, bring all of them home right now. Right now. Let's send our hearts to the east. Kol hod balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiha ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai.